Hello and welcome to day 62 of 365 days toward racial change. My name is Tom Lenz Nyback. Thanks for continuing with us. We're going to continue with our series on political change and attitudes for Black folks, but I can't forget my famous introduction. Why we're here, who informs us, and whatnot. We are here teasing out, thinking critically about Black life, Black involvement in this nation, and how whites interact and all the races in between. And most of our focus is towards a economic focus and impact. We can extract some of our moral leanings, get this emotion out of racism and things like that, and think more logically about the economic impact and how we can work together to make some changes. That's not even giving half credit to to what goes on here, but it's one of those things. It's a relationship, like going to the gym. You got to stick around before people reach out to you, and when you stick around here long enough, you'll understand my mind in pursuing this forum for a full year. Okay, so we're informed by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson, and he's written a lot of great works on this subject. So I'm not an expert per se. I'm just kind of regurgitating and giving my view of how these forces have impacted my life and my burden for the Black American community. Having said that, I do want to introduce us to two main topics for this whole year that I really want you to come away with. First topic has two parts. The first part is, does the Black mind of slavery permeate, move itself through Black minds, stemming from the roots of slavery and that whole era and the conditioning that went on for Black folks? Does it still prevail from generation to generation? Are we passing along slave mentality, attitudes, and behaviors? And conversely, does white privilege and entitlement prevail in the same way in society towards Black folks and all this stuff? At the time of this video, there's been another police shooting apparently. There's been a trial and all that, trying to bring criminal charges against the police, but no criminal charges were filed. That's a big subject. It's sad, and we're literally sanctioning the outright execution of Black men on the street now. It's becoming institutionalized. We had a big epidemic a couple years ago. I think it was 2016, and it still trickles on. Cops killing, mostly white cops killing Black men just outright. It's atrocious, and there needs to be a stop. There needs to be some serious penalties for that. Okay, so that's the first part. Second part is, are Blacks playing properly economically in America? Are we simply a consumer class confined to buying all these Chinese products? I'm just coming back from Walmart, which is just a Chinese outlet, Chinese products, and everything's made in China. I need these products to do my stuff, and there's very few American alternative. The latest thing I found was American socks. I guess that's most best America can do. Socks, and I think hopefully we're still manufacturing some cars here. Okay, back to Dr. Claude Anderson. He is kind of our guru for these things. He's already articulated a lot of the topics we talk about here, and I've read 3 of his books, and I love to read. I'm a bibliophile, no doubt about it. A Black History Reader, 101 questions you never thought to ask. So we come out of there. That's good. We just take little bits and bites. We got a whole year to work on this stuff. Black Labor, White Wealth. We come out of this. The Search for Power and Economic Justice. We're currently going through a series here in his book, PowerNomics, his national plan to empower Black America. And some interesting, very important topics and interesting segues he goes into in that book. And we're coming out of the book having a focus on politics for the next couple of days in preparation for the 2020 race coming up very soon. Now, having said that, so that it's not all realistic racism and drudgery, we do fictional account of racism and drudgery. And we check in on Old Uncle Tom by Harriet Beecher Stowe, a white female abolitionist. And we look at that. I'm finding that much of what she's written, what goes on there, is has molded and shaped some of the attitudes in American society today. So we look in on that. From there, we get blackface, a lot of other characteristics of life between blacks and whites. Right from that book. That book was number 2. Like I guess when it was compiled, it came out mid 1800s. It was number 2 behind the all-time bestseller, the Bible. So this book's been in many homes, influenced a lot of things, and it's interesting to note that it's scarcity today. In it's something that you kind of hear about in school. You hear pejorative remarks about Uncle Tom, to classify a certain kind of black man, things like that. But so we're going through this book to tease out some of those important things. Behind me, you see hashtag us too. I keep that up there. Hashtag USTOO. Interact with that movement. Black women are featured there. Last time I checked in, I got to get back there a little bit. Also, Blag Enough, BLAGGENUF. Dot whatever that is, it'll come up once you start typing it into your browser search bar there, and it's kind of a black Facebook forums and communities there with which to interact, and I'm sure those are just 2 of the many of black communities talking about relevant issues. So we're going through today, day 62, first part of Dr. Anderson's political actions. Next couple days we'll be talking about political actions. The first one is to promote group self-interest and use political acts to empower Black America. I want to start off, though, today with a quote. We're coming out of PowerNomics, and it's on page 187 if you have the text, the hardback. Hopefully the pages are the same. If you have the text, coming off of page 187, Dr. Anderson writes, "We play politics just to play. Others play for the benefits of winning or being in the winner's circle. We often support campaign issues that do not benefit us. Blackness is excluded. But we hope that through some miraculous twinge of conscience, once in office, the former candidate will offer us some spoils as supporters." I mean, meaning that, after we support a candidate, will they in turn follow through on whatever promises they may have made to Black folks or whatever platform they've run on. Hopefully they'll fulfill it and piecemeal out some of those benefits to Black folks specifically, is what he's saying there. I think it's a profound statement because us Blacks, we love to settle for the symbols and the pieces of paper and stuff, but we don't get land, we don't get resources, we don't get opportunities, real tangible things that we can rest on and that we can grow, pass down to our children, and feel as though we're truly participating in this nation's overwhelming abundance of wealth and resources. Okay, so blacks, he starts off this section, blacks don't like their history. It's not about being black, but that we, those descended from slaves like me, uh, we don't generally revel in a past that is so dark and so abusive, so marginalized, so completely dominated. Like we don't, uh, we have no celebration, which is one of the big things of my thing. Other groups have Cinco de Mayo. The Jewish have all kinds of stuff through the year. We have our traditional Americanized stuff, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we have a holiday season that comes through and all that. But blacks don't have something that we gather around, have parades, have a day off for. It'd be nice if we could organize something like that. But we have months and birthdays and things like that where business still goes on. Where things don't stop. It's not a big enough issue, but our history with uh, being raped, abused, lynched, um, you know, allowed to participate in some of our big blue chip organizations and things like that, moving up in management. Those are, it's not as though blacks lack the ability, as what I've said before. If you're here on the first of the month, now I got a series of Black First, Real Black First, but most of the information I'm coming out of is about blacks doing something that's already been done and mastered by white folks. That's not what I'm talking about. So what I'm getting back to is that blacks don't have no pride in surviving their own kind of Holocaust. And I think that's he starts out the piece like that because that's a detrimental point to lose that point of reference in our past and to feel whatever. It's probably shame and all that. We don't, you know, do we dress in rags and crawl on the ground on a holiday to observe our slavery past? What would that look like as a problem? Everybody else has banners and they've had battles. They've had coups and stuff like that. We don't have that. We were emancipated. We didn't wrest our freedom. The issues, our issues went to Congress and had to be debated and talked about, and all this. Our journey away from those challenging issues aren't so flamboyant and full of glamour and stuff like that. It was always this white power giving us those benefits and stuff, and only to a certain point. We're always, we don't come fully to the table. We write it down, and then they check and see, make sure that we're not going to overthrow the nation or something. I don't know what their part is, but this lack of identification with the past, I think that's detrimental to us. So that's how Dr. Anderson starts that portion of us practicing some group self-interest is to have some connection to the past. And in your notes, I think I wrote in the notes how I did put in notes, take the Christian faith or some other well-established group or religion. There's a connection there to the past, and with Christ's life, death, the resurrection, and promise to come back again, and all those things galvanize the Christian faith, and that's something that group in all its branches can come together on, even though it comes out of a challenging past, a lot of martyrs back there as well, and but it's talked about every week at least, and I rehash all of that, and many of those Christian organizations, once a month they're going to have a communion to really step up their memory game about their connection with the past. So, us Black folks, if there's going to be some group self-interest, we're going to have to find some basis. Right now, we don't. It's going to be hard to get a group self-interest when somebody's hip-hop over there, and I'm rock and roll over here. You got your intellectuals over here, the fighters over there, and we've got our scientists back here and politicians back over there, but no common denominator, which is our past, which we can be proud of, that we survived that. So we're a people full of passion, and also the best fighters. Maybe I'm biased. I feel like Blacks are the best at whatever's going on. It's just that whites have put themselves in position to dominate and dictate and be kind of gatekeepers to a lot of some of the loftier opportunities in the world, and so it appears like if someone from space came, it would appear that Blacks were inferior in their ability, but that they'd have to stick around and they would have to understand the past, the mentality, how whites have dominated and projected themselves in this way to get that. We're all equal in ability. I think Blacks are better though, because once we do get in position, we excel and we dominate. All we don't lack for ability, just opportunity. And the white gatekeepers are going to keep some strict controls and checks and balances to keep it that way. And I say Blacks full of passion and better fighters. The idea emotionally, we seem to be so forgiving and loving. We're passionate about our God and stuff like that, and that may have been a source of how whites came to dominate us by taking advantage of that, because we had a different value system. Same with the Native Americans, different value system, like exchanging beads and trinkets and shiny things was exchanging goods between equals. Neither group of these Blacks or Native Americans, I think, initially believed that it was about exploitation. Getting broken machinery or devices, broken weapons and trinkets and stuff like that in exchange for millions of square acres of land and Black bodies and souls. That there was a different value system there, and the whites exploited it, or Europeans exploited it. I won't say whites exclusively. The Spanish, the Portuguese, everybody got a piece of that. Once it really started jumping off. Um, and so I mentioned blacks full of passion and all that being taken advantage of because we still, even to this day, as we come into this 21st century, we align ourselves. We allow all the other groups with their interests to come on board and come and participate along with us. When those groups, they don't mention us, they don't support us in turn, they don't reciprocate all this energy, they don't recognize our sacrifices, what we've lived through. But the political rhetoric and all that is good ammunition for them, and they use it to their advantage. And once they really get that momentum going, they kick blacks to the curb. So it's black folks need to get with that little mental. It's probably what I say is part of the conditioning from way back. It's the same way blacks have to present themselves so, postured without any ill intent and things like that to the world. We have to keep that face on it, non-threatening. We must be non-threatening at all times, because the backlash is when we're rising up, when we're talking about getting our needs met and the issues, then we run into even bigger problems. It's a kind of they call it reverse racism and things like that is what they try to jam us up with. So those issues are come into play when you talk about the blacks with so much compassion and stuff. I mean, think about it. We were conditioned to love our masters, put so many others first through meritorious manumission, which promised freedom to blacks for exercising benevolent acts towards their masters and slavers, saving their lives, and especially informing on one another. So it was a very good tool used in divisiveness. Meritorious manumission, very important. Try to hold on to that term and that dynamic that may still be running in the black American community. Okay, we need to focus our resources. Very important. Without that, we're going to be stuck. And I just brought a magnifying glass because I'm reading a book with some small print. My eyes are going too. But, we know how to use a magnifying glass. And you take it and you can focus the energy from the sun and burn up ants and grass, start fires and things like that because it fucking focus. It increases potency. And black folks don't readily focus, and our what happens is our message is diluted and it gets dispersed. We lose our energy when we either adopt other groups or other groups kind of adopt us. If we had a big gazillion man march, or something like that, then whatever the march was, it's for a whole lot of reasons. Let's say the Million Man March for black folks. Well, then you had all these religious faces interacting and coming into play with a Muslim person with Muslim allegiances kind of running the show. So it appears like it's the black men are a Muslim event, which it wasn't necessarily supposed to be that, but things get so large that other groups come in with their interests and they want to have a say at the table. That's America's democratic thing. But but it's like the Malcolm X movie. You know, Denzel Washington playing Malcolm X, and he's out of jail. He's cleaned up, and he's starting to speak around colleges. And this beautiful white blonde or white bleach blonde haired female, you know, comes to the Malcolm X character. What can I do to be a part of? And he's thinking, wow, okay, let's get some white female assistant to be like allies. But he says, you know, he says nothing. You know, he wasn't trying to hurt the girl's feeling and everything, but I think the character, Spike Lee, maybe, is involved, you know, in writing the script. He's trying to point out that there needs to be a focus and that we need potency in our message, in our agenda. Um, you know, without that, the power structure does not, you know, it's not going to take us seriously with so much chaos and dispersion and things like that. Listen to something else Dr. Anderson says. He says, this is page 192. Like Asian, Arab, European, gay, handicapped, and women's organizations, Hispanic organizations do not promote a black agenda, nor do they equate black and Hispanic interests. Now, he goes that portion to finish off that political action step one is about how Hispanics, you know, want to usurp black position and how they've overcome. This material is dated, so they've actually have surpassed us in a lot of things. But it's about, you know, blacks, all those groups mentioned and all that. Blacks, when they try to move forward, are accepting of those other issues and other marginalized folks. You know, it's got its pros and cons to do that. We need to be more sensitive to how, you know, what we mean. What are we saying? We're fighting so hard for blacks to be a part of and participate, wealth, resources, economics, and all this stuff, you know, and, you know, but we're not focused with one another. We're throwing our own selves under the bus when we support these other groups. These other groups got plenty of their own support. They got valid issues, gays, women, handicapped, and all those other groups. They have their legitimate platform. Just let them move their platform forward. It's not, you know, this hot, melting pot of self-help like 12 steps or something. You know, you can have 12 steps for anything. And it's not like that at all. Black folks need to focus and stay on point, stay on message with what it is they need, what needs to happen in the nation for us to get our needs met. So we need to have some allegiance. And finally, he ends that portion with he picks on black leaders, and he does this a lot, actually, and I think it's appropriate. We gained so much traction with civil rights and social integration, those great things. We didn't get exactly what we needed. It's a failed experiment, but now we know it's just a learning experience. And but with that, we can say, he says, black leadership has failed because, you know, instead of driving forward and driving on, they allowed these groups to piggyback on the message, the martyrdom of Dr. King, Malcolm X, possibly, if that's a connection, Medgar Evers, some names like that. You know, they didn't protest when Hispanics and gays and all these other groups started to adopt that message. You know, I saw that documentary on Dr. King, and that we will overcome mantra became universal worldwide, and worldwide they showed pictures of all kinds of monks and people all over the world would chant that, that black spiritual and whatnot, So, but on that note, black leaders did not protest or distance themselves appropriately from some of those groups. So we keep missing opportunities. It's a conditioning. It's something, and we'll get the hint. Hopefully, we'll get the hint before it's too late. I think there's still time before we get totally overran, but it's a long ways off. I'm Thomas Nyback. That's day number 62 of 365 days towards racial change. We want to continue with our political piece, as we just kind of check in as 2020 gets closer. I'm sure we'll even focus even more on some of these important political issues. Thanks. We'll see you again.